Please remain standing as we hear our gospel lesson today, taken from the Gospel according to Luke, the 5th chapter, verses 1 through 11. Now one day, Jesus was standing beside Lake Gennesaret when the crowd pressed in around him to hear God's word. So Jesus saw a couple boats sitting there by the lake, and the fishermen, they'd gone ashore. They were cleaning and washing their nets. And so he got in one of the boats, the one that belonged to Simon, and then he said, "Hey, can you row me a little distance from the shore?" And then Jesus sat down in the boat, and he began to teach all the people that were on the shore from the boat. And when he finished speaking to the crowds, he said to Simon, "Row out farther into the deep water. Drop your nets that we can catch some stuff." Simon looked at him and replied, "Master, we've worked hard all night and caught nothing. But I guess if you say so, I'll drop the nets." So they dropped the nets, and their catch was so huge that their nets were splitting and breaking. So they signaled for the partners in the other boats to come and help them. They filled both boats so full that they weren't going to sink. Simon Peter saw the catch. He fell at Jesus' knees and he said, "Leave me, Lord, I am a sinner." And Peter and those with him were overcome with amazement because of the number of fish they had caught. James and John, Zebedee's sons, were Simon's partners, and they were amazed too. And Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid." Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you will be fishing for people." And as soon as they brought the boats to the shore, they left everything and they followed Jesus. This is the word of God for all people.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. Now, in an instant, everything was different. July 7th, 2017, my life changed in ways I couldn't even imagine. On that day, our daughter was born. And an event so profound in my life that the ripples of it have not even ceased to be radiating out into my life. An event so profound that I didn't fully understand the fact that it meant I might never again get a full night's sleep. In an instant, everything changed. Now, change isn't always like this. Sometimes change is real subtle and slow. We don't even realize that change is taking place. Sometimes change walks right up to us and just smacks us in the face. Now, we began our service today with our call to worship of us asking God to help us hear. As we brought ourselves into worship this morning, we said, "God, help us to hear." That we would hear God's work and call in our lives and in the life of our church. God calls us to ministry, to help others, to hear the Spirit. And sometimes God calls us to change. Now, change is often a dirty word in churches. We're not supposed to talk about that word. Don't use that word. Don't bring up that word. It gets whispered in parking lots. It gets thrown in anger at somebody we don't like in the church. Or we use it behind the back of leaders that we don't quite care for. Change. Change. But it's because of change that what we hold dear, the church that we know and love, is the church that it is today. Change is what led to the United Methodist Church coming into existence in the first place. Change took place in John Wesley's heart. Change that led John Wesley to go and preach outside of a building. Crazy talk, but just hang in there with me. It led him to hear God. And that got John ostracized from respectable society. You see, what happens is often when we get changed by God and we get led by the Spirit, we find ourselves ostracized. Because change makes people uncomfortable. It makes those who benefit from the status quo decidedly uncomfortable. We don't like change if we benefit from that. And this is why this Jewish man that is roaming around preaching from boats is such a threat, because he's preaching change. This is why John Wesley was so dynamic. He was preaching change to those who felt they had been left behind. Change of lives to those who are on the bottom rung. Think you're just a lonely fisherman in a boat? Let's change that, Jesus says. Now, change is the stuff of nightmares for organized religion, because with change comes handing off. We have to hand off power and authority to others who understand the way things are. So Christ goes to the people and says, "Be my disciples." He doesn't go to the temple and find some Pharisees and Sadducees and legal experts and say, "Hey, you guys are, you know what's up. Come follow me." He goes to the people and he says, "Be my disciples," because he wants to change the world, not perpetuate its iniquities. What has change done in our lives is positive, you might ask. How many of you drove here this morning? How many of you have zippers on your clothes? That's a pretty good change. I'll take that one, right? How many of you have central air? Or heat, right? That's right. With how many years it is. Right? Change has led to integration. It's led to equality, mostly in the pulpit. I wouldn't say our pulpits are fully equal. We're still working on that. Change has led to women in leadership in our churches. Change leads to positive steps. Change has led to bathrooms inside of the building. That's a good one. Yeah, you all laugh, but -20 outside? I'll take it inside, thank you very much. Change leads to dynamic shift. And the story being broader and reflecting the character of God in more and more ways. But for all of this change to take place, someone had to hear. I feel like am I really mic'd up right now? Yeah, I'm trying to good. Okay, move it slightly. Alright, I'll just hear myself. It's weird. But for all of this change to take place, someone had to hear it. And then others had to hear them. You see, if Jesus had just gotten in a boat and said, "Come follow me," and they hadn't heard him say, "Come follow me," nothing would have changed. If the disciples hadn't responded to Jesus' call, nothing would have changed. But instead of being afraid of change in their occupation, change in their financial status, change in familial security, change in family, change in respectability, and in a moment, the fishermen said, "Let's do something crazy. Let's follow Jesus." And in that moment, everything changed. So change the narrative. The narrative is your story. But God is calling you to change your story, to take ownership of your story, to follow God in your story. This is what it means to encounter Christ. It's to risk having your story changed. When we encounter Christ, it becomes a choose-your-own-adventure novel. And the pages might not be filled up. God says, "Yeah, let's write this part of the story together." To risk having yourself changed when we encounter Christ. To overcome racism, something that still perpetuates our world today, we have to risk ourselves to be open to the guidance of the Spirit and to God. We must let our story change. Where we engage in honest self-examination, we ask God, how can I be better? God, how can I be different? God, how can I grow? Now, sometimes it helps us to have a concrete, real-world example of what am I talking about. So let's look at this idea of how changing things is playing out in our world right now. Y'all ready for this? Liam Neeson. Everyone just got slightly uncomfortable, didn't they? Yeah, it was already really quiet, but it got like quieter, kind of. Right? Liam Neeson has said some stuff recently. And and some interviews, and his comments have sparked debate and outrage. And so I was listening to Trevor Noah, who's the host of The Daily Show on Comedy Central, which we all know is, that means it's respectable, right? It's on cable, so therefore it's good. But I was listening to him talk about Liam Neeson's comments and the backlash around him. And I really appreciate Trevor Noah's perspective on things, not because he's a comedian, although I like comedians, but it's because he's an African-American man from a mixed racial marriage from South Africa. He has this whole other perspective I can't even begin to understand. And so he'll say things that would never have occurred to me because they're so outside of my life experience. And so he wades into this Liam Neeson thing, and he starts talking about it. But his take on it was different, and it was very thought-provoking, and asked some powerful questions. And so first, he noticed that the conversation began in a way that wasn't very helpful. He said, if Liam Neeson had been on Oprah, this is his example. He said, if Liam Neeson had been on Oprah and said this, it would have been a conversation. He would have said, oh, Oprah, I said this, and Oprah would have said, oh, Liam, why did you say that? And he said, Oprah, I don't know. And there would have been a conversation that takes place. Things may have been different. It would have been a conversation, is Trevor's point, is that there would have been actual communication and dialogue between two sides. And instead, Liam just said this on some show somewhere, and then Trevor noticed that in Taken, Liam's thing in Taken is that I have a special set of skills. And he says apparently Liam's special set of skills does not include shutting his mouth because he won't stop going on TV and making it work. And so he said he didn't do it in a good way. He just kept talking. He wants it to be a conversation, a processing of what went on, his emotions and thoughts, and it would have been a much deeper conversation than just his one-sided interview. But he also says he's really glad because he thinks it's powerful that Liam Neeson realized that there was some racism there inside of him, and he didn't realize it initially that it was there. And he's glad that Liam is ashamed. He thinks it's powerful that he is ashamed of his thoughts and his attitude. Because it meant that he was struggling within himself, and he felt bad about it. He was wrestling. Now, Trevor's point is that conversation should take place because too often he feels that everything we do is about just trying to get someone. We just want to get them, they catch them doing the thing, and then they're bad for life. He points out that he's glad Liam Neeson went and got help and tried to process through this afterwards. And then he closes by saying he's sad because there's no value in atonement. I didn't think about that. What does he mean there's no value in atonement? He's lamenting, Trevor Noah is lamenting that rather than having a dialogue and learning and growing, rather than working to process and help someone see the error of their ways, instead of seeing potential of allowing someone to actually apologize and learn and grow, he is now labeled as racist for life. And Trevor says he doesn't want that to be the world in which he lives. You were once this, you are now this forever. Because that's not how this is supposed to be. Because it doesn't allow someone's life to be changed as they find themselves shocked by how far they have fallen. We don't allow people to use their rock bottom experiences to change their lives, to change their narratives, and how are we ever going to move forward as a human race? Now, to change the narrative doesn't mean that all who were before are now gone forever, and that all who come after are somehow perfect. It means that we understand the story can change mid-story. Your story can change mid-story. You can be on story A. Hard stop. Take a right-hand turn. You're now story B. That those who are doing the changing, they need to show and explain and continue to work to show us that change in their story. To simply apologize and say, I'm sorry that I did that, and then to keep on doing and keep on being and not show growth and learning doesn't actually indicate a change in story. Simply saying I'm changing doesn't equal real change. It's kind of like my mom made me tell the neighbor kid that I was sorry when I was 8. I wasn't really sorry. Yeah. opportunity to go deeper than the surface? How will we ever break our nets? And how will we ever fully discover what's going on? If we force ourselves and others to remain simply on the surface or even on the shore, we miss out on Christ's call to change the narrative by letting down the nets and going deeper into the waters of faith and life. Because we have to acknowledge that it can all change in an instant if we help others explore, process, work through, and continue their growth. Now, just because we've ignored or told inaccurate stories about racism or mass incarceration, poverty, immigrants, the list goes on, does not mean we're stuck in that way of thinking forever. We can invite God to change the narratives that have led to judgment, bias, or even just a feeling of futility in our lives. We can invite God to help us change our narrative and then to help us see how our narrative has changed. Peter acknowledges in the boat that he is a sinful man, unworthy, not only of receiving, but of being a part of Jesus' ministry. And yet Jesus says to him, "You are worthy, come with me." Jesus says to us, even in the face of our racism, of our sexism, our misunderstandings, that we can grow and be more. And that we are worthy to join with him so that we can continue to learn and grow, that our lives can be changed. As we look at our scripture from Corinthians, we have to acknowledge that what Paul is saying to us is that changing the narrative is not only about seeing others differently, it's also about seeing ourselves as God sees us and being honest about God's call upon our lives. A call to be aware of the sinful mindsets and attitudes that reside within us, and then to work to change those. Now, to get rid of those attitudes about our fellow human beings that threaten to drag us down into the depths of sin is not easy. It takes honest, hard, cognitive work. That's what Trevor Noah was trying to say about Liam Neeson. He's glad he's seeing some honest cognitive work, but he wants to see more. He wants to see that be an actual dialogue in our society, not just a they said, now we're polarized and we'll never talk again. His point, Trevor's point, is that if we can't acknowledge that growth can take place, that someone's life can be totally transformed, then how are we ever supposed to become better? There's a song. It's not a hymn. It's a country song. And I just totally forgot the name of it, which is not going to help this example at all. It's all right to make fun of me for forgetting it, as I'm going to talk about it. But the name of the song, I don't know the name of the song, but in the country song, it's all about change. You know, and you see, and there's different people. You see changing. One's an alcoholic, and she's wrestling with this disease that she has, and she ends up throwing the bottle down, and the chorus says, "Some people change." And I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I think that's the name of the song. I mean, some people change. And then in one verse of the song, it says, "He was raised to think like his dad, bear a mind full of hate." But he can't do that anymore. You see a young man throw a hood on a fire and burn it and walk away, and they say, "Some people change." And Trevor Noah is trying to say, and Jesus is trying to say, and Paul is trying to say that we change, but we have to know why we're changing and what we're changing from. If we just say, "I'm not racist," that means we don't know ourselves. I will tell you right now that I'm probably racist. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but what I'm saying is there's stuff in myself that all of a sudden one day I'll catch myself thinking something or doing something, crossing a street, I don't even know what it is, and I go, "Whoa, where did that come from?" And then I have to ask myself, what was that about? I have to say, "God, help me understand what just went down." And I have to ask myself, is that from how I grew up? Is that from one of my friends in high school? What is going on? It's not saying that I'm going out looking to do bad stuff, but it's saying that every so often we have stuff that just surfaces in our lives, and we get super confused and weirded out by it. And our challenge and our call is to actually embrace that and ask ourselves, what is this? And not to go, whoa, I don't like that, and then try to do the crab walk away from it. As if somehow if we just ignore it, that means it'll go away. Peter says to Jesus, I'm a sinful man, and Jesus says, we're going to work on that. Sometimes we look at ourselves and something we just did, and we ask ourselves, whoa, what was that? And then Jesus says to us, we're going to work on that. Amen? Yeah. That's part of what it means to be a person and to grow. When I talked about my call to ministry, I talked about the fact that I had intentionally went to a college that was situated near a part of a town that I would never have gone to when I was in high school. Because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and experience and grow and have encounters that would make me go, whoa! And then I could grow from that to become a better person, and I could move forward. We can't pretend like we don't all have sinful things inside of our hearts and our minds and our attitudes. And that those don't affect how we view people. But the power that Christ gives us is to then ask ourselves, what is this? Why is this? And how can I become better and deal with this? And not just try to shove it down in there like it doesn't actually percolate. Peter says, I'm a sinful man, and Jesus says, we go work on that. That's what I want. Because nobody comes to Jesus and says, yo, I'm perfect. And he's like, you are perfect. Let's go. Right? Every single one of us that comes to Jesus, something in us we're carrying around. And he says, we're going to work on that. And that doesn't mean that we don't go on the journey. But it does mean that while we're on the journey, we take stock of what's going on in our journey. We have to change the narrative of our story. So that when something comes up in our story that we don't like, we ask ourselves, why? We ask ourselves where that came from. We have to look back in the story, we have to flip back to chapter 2, and ask ourselves, ooh, I forgot all about that. That's how we change the narrative. It's by challenging what it is that surfaces within us. Changing the narrative allows us to change our life in an instant, but it doesn't mean that the work is over. It's a new birth, it's a new focus, it's a dynamic shift in our life. That's the love of God, the guidance of the Spirit, and the call of Christ. Now what's the date? What's the date here? 10? 13 days. In 13 days, I don't know if y'all know this, in 13 days, a whole bunch of United Methodists from around the world are going to get together in St. Louis, Missouri. Does anybody know about this? You guys can pay attention? We have to have a special General Conference. Now, General Conference is our big body. That's the only group that can say what United Methodists across the board say. We have to have a special one. Because we've gotten ourselves so far down the rabbit hole of disagreement, we can't find a table to come to talk about stuff. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure some people cut the table up and burned it, but that's a whole other conversation. But as a denomination, we have to get together to have meetings to decide how we feel about people. And if those people are worthy of being part of our church. Somewhere in the midst of all of that, Jesus comes, hopefully, to each and every person as a delegate to the General Conference, and each and every person that ever enters the Methodist Church and says, what's up? And we say, I don't know. And then he says, we're going to work on that. Because at the end of the day, whether it's someone who comes to Soups On, someone who comes here for worship, someone who comes to youth group because they want to go bowling, someone who passes by on the street, they have a narrative. They have a story. You have a story, and God is at work in your story somewhere to help you with the parts of your story you don't like, so that as we move forward, we can be writing a story that we're proud of. The guidance of the Spirit, the call of God, the love of Christ that bring us to a new place, to be a new people, to change our narrative. And then sometimes you just feel like you're out on a cliff and you don't know how to end something. Because you found yourself in this really weird place where you didn't write half of that down. Because the Spirit moved you and you're like, I gotta say that about myself and about our church. And that brings us to a place where all we can say is that God is calling and is in our call. God is waiting for you to open up your own story and to look at your narrative and to ask yourself, what can I change in my narrative? That's the love of God. And even when we say to God, I'm not worthy, God says, I know, but you are. And that other